So the NFL world got some surprising news today with the announcement that the Carolina Panthers have fired head coach Ron Rivera after almost 9 seasons at the helm. You look at this, the Carolina Panthers going the wrong way again this year at 5-7, 4 games left for all intents and purposes, realistically eliminated from the playoff race. Does anybody really think that they're going to make it? Probably not. Maybe more so of a surprise that he was fired with 4 games left in the season than it was that he was fired at all. But that said, when you look at this move, is it right? Should they have done it? Was the timing wrong? Was that kind of bogus? I look at this decision and I say it was sad but necessary. Sad in the sense of just like Cam Newton, Riverboat Ron has been the guy for that Carolina Panthers franchise since 2011. You think about that. He has been the coach of this team for almost an entire decade now. So you associate the Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton. You also associate them with Ron Rivera. And the Panthers over the past 9 years have enjoyed some success under Ron Rivera. I mean, you look at his overall record, 76, 63-1. I think it's like a 542 winning percentage. So he wasn't a total bum. You know, you had 4 seasons where this Panthers team made the playoffs. They won division titles. In 2015, they went 15-1. They won the NFC Conference Championship. They went to the Super Bowl where they ultimately lost. So you look at it and you say, you know, it's not like it was all bad. It's not like he had totally worn out his welcome or anything, but it may have just been time for him to go. And that's kind of what you look at here, because you say with Ron Rivera, you had some very good seasons, but even one of those 4 playoff seasons, if you remember, was the year that they went 7-8-1. Now, they won a playoff game that year, if I recall correctly, but still 7-8-1. But you had 7 playoff games during his 9 years there, and you actually won some playoff games, going 3-4 in those. So the Panthers enjoyed some success. But when you look at last year, and I know Cam Newton was battling the shoulder injury, and he wasn't the same last year, even compared to 2017. The team started off, 6-2, and then they got housed on Thursday night against the Steelers, and they just completely imploded. If I recall correctly, they finished 7-9. Now again this year, you don't have Cam Newton. He starts the first 2 games, but he's not the same. He's injured. He's out for the year. You roll with Kyle Allen as far as you can. But over the past few weeks, the wheels are starting to fall off the Panthers' wagon a little bit. And all of a sudden, now they're sitting there at 5-7. And it looks like for the second straight year, a hot start is going to be mitigated by a disappointing collapse type of second half finish to the season. You know, you look at that record and you say, yeah, he's been a little bit over 500. They've made the playoffs a few times. But the timing feels right. Like, it's probably time for a change for Ron Rivera. It's probably time for a change for the Carolina Panthers organization, especially if you're thinking about the fact that this organization may move on from their franchise player after this season in Cam Newton. It might make sense at the same time when you're doing that level of house cleaning to go ahead and move on at the head coach position as well. Because this is now the second straight year that you've had kind of a collapsing finish to the season. What makes you think that it's going to be a whole lot better in 2020, especially if the decision is made as an organization to not bring Cam Newton back into the fold? Now, as far as the timing of firing him, it's curious. And if you look at it kind of shallowly from the outside, you say, well, that's kind of bogus. The dude's gotten a lot of good for you over the past decade, and you're going to fire him with 4 games left in the season? I totally get that, and I understand that perspective, but here's my thoughts on this. Is that when you look at Cam Newton, you know, he's probably not going to be back. You're not going to bring him back, then you know you're probably not going to bring Ron Rivera back, especially second straight season without the playoffs, second straight kind of collapsing finish. Why wait? Like, you have to wait until after the season before you make a decision on Cam Newton, but you don't have to wait for Ron Rivera. And if anything, an argument could be made that by firing him now, you've given him the month of December off. He gets a bit of an extended Christmas break. Can spend it with his family. He can get a little early start on recuperating and really start to take a look back and analyze the landscape of the NFL and determine where his next coaching opportunity is going to come from. So instead of him kind of getting stuck in the muck and the quagmire of getting fired when all these other coaches are getting fired, if you knew you weren't going to retain him, you know you're not going to the playoffs, why not just go ahead and make the decision and pull the trigger now? Because I really don't think it's going to hurt Riverboat Ron to have been fired now instead of 4 weeks from now. You might as well go ahead and get it out of the way. Because if anything, you give him an early jump start to go out there and look for jobs, look at opportunities, get interviews set up, and so forth. If anything, you're doing Ron a bit of a favor. Because you know the time there in Carolina was up, but you know he's a decent NFL head coach. And I promise you, you're going to be looking at 6, 7, 8 openings in the NFL this upcoming offseason. You'll be damned if you're going to convince me there are even a couple of candidates better than Ron Rivera. You'd be hard-pressed to try and prove that to me. You know, maybe the Chargers would be interested in bringing him back to the fold. He was an assistant there at one point in time. Maybe they would want to bring him in if they decide to move on from Anthony Lynn. That might be a good fit there. You know, a team like the New York Giants, maybe Dave Gettleman wants to bring him into the fold. He's used to working with a young quarterback as he did with Cam Newton. Maybe he would do some good things with somebody like a Daniel Jones, and especially if the Giants end up with the first or second overall pick and they take Chase Young, maybe you want to have Ron Rivera work with him. Like, there are options here for Ron. Maybe the Cowboys come sniffing. Probably unlikely, but you never know. You know, if Ron wants a job next season, he's going to have a job. And if he doesn't, then there is a fundamental issue with the decision makers in the NFL. If you got to tell them that Ron Rivera once sniffed Sean McVay's butt cheese in order for him to get a job, then that's what you got to do. But he'll be just fine. And if anything, the timing gives him a few weeks break. He's going to get paid for it anyways. If your employer was going to sit there and say, hey, we're going to pay you out the remainder of your term for however long that is, we know you weren't going to be here in another month anyways. You knew that. So why not just go ahead and pull the trigger now? We'll give you your severance package. We'll pay you. Take the Christmas month of December off. Refresh yourself for 2020. Like, that's not really a bad deal at all. I don't feel like he's getting hosed here because there is justification for a coaching change needing to be made in Carolina. There's also a justification for Ron Rivera needing a change of scenery. 'Tis better to have done it now before it turned worse. Like, what happens if all of a sudden this last season ended at 5-11 and they don't win another game? Then that puts an even more bitter taste in fans' mouth, the organization's mouth, Ron Rivera's mouth. You just don't need any of that. Well, the timing perhaps maybe seemed suspect. They were ultimately going to do it anyways. It would have been the right decision to do it 4 weeks from now. So to me, it's the right decision to go ahead and do it now. If anything, you were doing him a favor. And I'll be absolutely stunned if Ron Rivera isn't back on an NFL sideline, if he so chooses at 57 years of age, to be an NFL head coach next season.